Alright, this is going to be a comparison between the 3070, the RTX 3070 and the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte in regards to Blender rendering. Alright, now I will be also kind of comparing them to the other two cards that I've had, which are the GTX 1060s and the RTX 2060 Supers. But I won't actually be using them today. I'm just going to go by the data that I have from previous tests. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start off with this BMW benchmark, and let me go to the preferences, and I'm going to put this on CUDA. And first off, I'm just going to use the RTX 3070, which the 3070 is going to be faster, but the 3060 has 12 gigabytes of VRAM versus 8 on the 3070. So you have 50% more VRAM on the 3060. Alright, let me go ahead and run this. And again, this is the 3070 rendering in CUDA, and I have all the settings exactly how the demo file comes. I don't have any adaptive sampling, no basically settings to make it quicker or anything. And we can see that this is going to do it in about 26, well, we'll go ahead and round up, 27 seconds. And if we go right here, I'm just going to add it right here, just say 27 seconds. You figure the a GTX 1060 could do it in 147 seconds, so it's way quicker than the GTX 1060. And the RTX 3070 is more than twice as fast than the 2060 CUDA or the 2060 Super. Alright, now let's do the same thing, but with the 3060. Now this will be a little bit slower because I believe the 3070 has like 5,888 CUDA cores, and the 3060 has like 3,800 and something, I believe. I don't remember quite exactly. See, it's already taken longer, so it's definitely slower than the 3070, but it's faster than the 2060 Super. Alright, took basically 45 seconds. I'll go ahead and put this up here, 3070 and 3060. Alright, so you figure it's roughly looks like about 1/3 or 33% faster than the 2060 Super, and significantly faster than the 1060, and about 1/3 slower. Well, actually, yeah, almost half as fast as the 3070, or at least on the BMW. I think that will change on longer renders. On longer renders, I think they'll be closer. Alright, now let's try an OptiX. Go ahead and change it to OptiX, turn on the 3070, and we'll render that and give it a try. Render image. And of course, it's going to be pretty quick in OptiX. Going to be about 18 seconds, I believe. Alright, round it up to 18 seconds. put this here, 18, and then let's try it with the 20, or pardon me, with the 3060. Alright, render image. I think this will probably be in the mid 20s, maybe 30. Probably closer to mid 20s. The 3060 is actually a very good card in my opinion. Alright, 29 seconds. Alright, so the 2060 Super took about 33 seconds. And it was 32 with a different motherboard, but that's close. But about 33 seconds. And the 3060 takes 29 seconds. 3070, 18 seconds. So there is when it comes to short renders, there is a pretty good sized gap between the two. But let's try it with something a little bit more difficult to render. Let's try the Barcelona. Alright. Go ahead and close that. No, don't want to save. And where's the Barcelona at? Here it is. That's not right. Alright. Let's go to preferences. And I'm going to go ahead and do CUDA. We'll do the 3070 first. And render image. Now let me bring this up so we can get an idea of, let me change the size of this so it's not covering everything up. The GTX 1060 did it in 814 seconds, which that's like what, 14 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And the RTX 2060 Super did it in 441 seconds. So this right here, the 3070, I don't remember how long it takes, but we'll see. I'm not gonna fast forward or do any cuts on this video. It's just gonna be completely raw. If you get impatient, you can always fast forward. Because a lot of people prefer to actually just look at the results, and then some people like me prefer to watch the results. So it's already up to 1 minute 27 seconds. Alright, it's getting pretty close to being finished. Got about another 20 seconds. And here we go, a couple more seconds and it'll be finished. Alright, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so basically 150 seconds. So that's not bad. You figure the With the GTX 1060 it takes a long time. With the 2060 Super and CUDA it takes roughly 3 times longer than the 3070. So let's try it with the 3060. Bring this over, change it from the 3070 to the 3060, render image, and I actually meant to bring this up earlier so people could see this. Bring up GPU-Z so you can actually see the power usage. Right now we are using the 3060. It's pulling basically 125 watts. It's running 1972 megahertz. The temperatures, well, I will say one thing. The temperatures on the 3060 are higher than on the 3070. And that's because the 3060, the heatsink is smaller. So it builds up heat quicker. But once it stabilizes, I've never seen it get hotter than this. This is pretty much what it gets to. Now in the 3070, it will creep up and eventually get to this for the most part, but it takes significantly longer. And the fan speed on the 3060 is quicker than on the 3070 because the fan has to work harder because the heatsink is smaller. But the temperatures still are well within safety range. And as you can see, it's definitely going to take longer with the 3060, but still not that bad. Now, I might as well mention this. The 3060, there are, I believe, 2 different versions of the 3060 12 gigabyte. There is a revision 1, which is the first ones that came out, and then there are revision 2s. The card I have is revision 2. Realistically, the only difference between revision 1 and revision 2 is that revision 1, you can mine cryptocurrency with it at full speed as long as you use the developer driver for it, which is 470.05, but the 470.05 driver does not work with the revision 2, which means if you try to install that driver, it will crash. And also the revision 2 has that hash rate limiter on it, so if you're wanting to mine cryptocurrency, the 3060 is a bad card to get. Do not bother getting 3060 if you plan on mining cryptocurrency, because the 3060, because of the hash rate limiter, it will only mine as well as a GTX 1060. So it's not worth it unless you're using your 3060 for stuff like this or for gaming. And for stuff like this it works fine, and for gaming it works fine. But you'd have to be a special kind of not bright if you was to buy the 3060 for mining. Alright, it's almost finished, and you can see how much longer it took. So there is a pretty significant difference in performance between the 3060 and the 3070, especially in CUDA. The 3060, it performs just maybe 15-20% better than the 2060 Super is all. But it has an additional 4 gigabytes of memory. Alright, let's document this. That's 240 plus 51, 291 seconds. So, and with the Barcelona, it was almost half as fast as the 3070. So there is a significant difference. Of course, that's CUDA. Now, let's do OptiX, and we'll go to the 3070. Well, pardon me. We'll go to the 3070 in OptiX, and we'll render this and see what it does. Let me bring up my sensors, change this to the 3070. Now you can see how much more power the 3070 is using. It's using about 50 watts more, 45, 50 watts more. OptiX works so much better than CUDA. I mean, it's not even up to a minute yet and it's already on the bottom row. But see, it went up to 180 watts. So the 3070 uses some power. I'd like to try out a 3090. 1 minute and 17 seconds. So that's basically 77 seconds. Alright, let's change this over to the 3060 rather. Alright, render image. Now this should be slower, obviously. Let me find my GPU Z, change it to the 3060. See, only using 112 watts. And that's one thing I've noticed with the 3060. Whenever you're rendering in OptiX, it uses less power than rendering in CUDA. It's not so much the case with the 3070. With the 3070, it uses pretty much the same amount of power, whether or not you're rendering in CUDA or OptiX. I'm not sure why, but that's pretty much just how it is. But still, that's not a bad speed. I mean, especially considering you know, the times for the GTX 1060 and the 2060 Super. Because you figure the let me see, 237. See, now that surprises. Well, that's 2. What am I thinking? See, 439 seconds is what it took an RTX 2060 Super in CUDA to render this, where in the 3060 it took 291 seconds. So it's about 1/3 quicker than the 2060 Super on this. Alright. It's almost finished. Just past 2 minutes. Alright, a couple more seconds. 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So that's 140 seconds. And so you figure that's a little bit less than the 3070 is almost twice as fast in optics on this than the 3060, which kind of surprises me a little bit. I thought they'd actually be closer. Now that's 140 seconds, and the 2060 Super took 196 seconds. So you're talking about 25% faster than the 2060 Super. I was actually expecting there to be a little bit bigger of a gap. I'm actually kind of surprised on that. Now let's go on to the classroom. Alright. No, I don't want to save. Go to the classroom. Now the classroom defaults to CPU instead of GPU, so I will have to change that. Edit preferences, and we'll go to CUDA and do the 3070 first. Render image. Tell you what, I want to drag this over so you can see it a little bit better. Boy, using over 200 watts. 212. Tell you what, 3070 is a good card, and it would be an awesome card if it had more VRAM. 8 gigabytes of VRAM is, in modern standards, is kind of low considering some of the complex scenes that are being rendered. I mean, don't get me wrong, most of what people render will fit within 8 gigabytes easily. 95% of everything I do easily fits within 8 gigabytes. But I like having that. I like having the extra 4 gig that the 3060 has, because there are a few times that I've ran into scenes I couldn't render because I didn't have enough VRAM on the 3070, which is one reason why I went ahead and got the 3060. That way, for situations like that, I have an extra 4 gigs on at least one GPU. Yeah, over 200 watts. That's kind of surprising. Alright, it's almost finished. Got about 5 more seconds. Alright, took 1 minute 53 seconds, or basically 113 seconds. Alright, now let's try that with the 3060. Render image. About 125, 130 watts is what it's pulling. So there's a good 80, 90 watts difference between what the 3060 is pulling versus what the 3070 is pulling. That's pretty significant. Now, of course, with all these demo files, or Blender in general, you can use adaptive sampling and stuff like that, and the denoiser and other little tricks to make it faster, because realistically I could render this scene much quicker than what it's being rendered now, but for the sake of proper comparison between other cards, I'm not changing any of the settings to optimize the rendering efficiency. But I remember trying to render this scene with my old laptop. Even the laptop I had that was fairly powerful, 2015 laptop, had a Intel CPU, 4720HQ. It was basically a 4-core CPU with hyper threading, so it's basically you had 8 threads, and it took like 45 minutes for this. It was crazy. But at one point, everything I was doing in Blender was done on a Lenovo laptop it was only a 2-core laptop. Didn't even have hyper threading. It was just 2 cores, 2 threads, and that was pretty much the first few months I was learning Blender. And then I moved on to the second laptop, which had, 8 threads, 4 cores, 8 threads. And then like a year after that is when I got my first desktop that had a GTX 1060, and it was like night and day. And I look back on that now, and that GTX 1060 was extremely slow, even though it felt fast at the time. Alright, it's almost finished. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. So that's what, 180, 227, 227 seconds. Now let's do it in OptiX. I'll go to the 3070, render image. Now this is obviously going to be quite a bit faster. 190 watts. That actually is pulling a little bit less than it was in CUDA. About 20 watts less. But yeah, that's much, much quicker. Got about 10 seconds left. Alright, 55 seconds. Alright, let's change this over to the 3060. And again, it's using about 120 watts, 125 watts. I'm going to guess that this is going to be in the ballpark of, I don't know, about 100 seconds. looks like it's got about 20, a little over 20 seconds left. Yeah, it's going to take roughly 100 seconds is what it looks like. And temps are consistent. 63C, hot spot, all that. All right, took 1 minute 40 seconds, 100 seconds. All right. All right, let's do some comparison here. So once again, it's showing about nearly half the speed of the 3070. The 3060 is nearly half the speed of the 3070, which kind of surprises me. I thought it would be much closer. And let's compare it with the 2060 Super. All right, the 2060 Super in CUDA did it in 281 seconds versus 227 seconds for the 3060, which that's actually pretty close. That makes me think that if they would have just created something like a 2060 Super, but with 12 gigabytes of VRAM, that would probably been a pretty good deal. In OptiX, it took 100 seconds, and the 2060 took 163 seconds. So here's where the the 3060 shines. When it comes to CUDA, this is what it's looked like to me. When it comes to CUDA, there's not a big difference between the performance between the 3060 and the 2060 Super in CUDA. But when it comes to OptiX, there is. And that's probably because of the second generation RT cores. Or at least that's my line of thinking. But, I mean, you're talking 55 seconds for OptiX for the 3070 versus 100 seconds in OptiX for the 3060. And for the take basically 160-ish seconds for the 2060. So it is significantly quicker in OptiX. But for the CUDA, not so much. However, when it comes to the 3070 in CUDA, there is a significant difference. So that is interesting. All right, let's try some EV, see how that looks. All right. Let me close this, and I think, yeah, I still have that forest one. Now I have the the 3060 in the display slot. So essentially, what you see here is being rendered by the 3060. So let's click play and see how it looks. Again, this is 3060 real-time rendering and EV. Not bad. This is doing just as good as the 3070 in my opinion. The 2060 Super was almost this good, but not quite. There was a little bit more stuttering and jittering with the 2060. Alright. What else do we have that we can test with this? Blender Man. I think that's, if that's the one I'm thinking of, with the robot dude looking like RoboCop. Yeah. Alright. That's okay, that's cycles. So let me go ahead and I got the 3060 selected, and I have this set to OptiX, and I'm going to put this in preview or render mode, render view, and this is the 3060. Not terrible. Whoops. All right. Let me. I think. I believe in viewport you can actually switch between those. I think that makes a difference. I'm not 100% sure actually. We'll see. Depending on how quickly. Yeah, it obviously is. Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, I do believe it's previewing right now with the 3070. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not. I'm not 100% positive. Me. I got both of them ticked on now. Of course, I don't think it's going to work that way. Nah, it don't make any difference. So apparently, it's just using the 3060 for this viewport right now. So let's try this. Does it have a camera? Apparently not. So I press. Oh, there we go. There's the camera. All right, let me do this. All right, let me bring this over to CUDA and leave the 3070 on, and we'll render this and see how long it takes. I don't think I've ever actually rendered this one, so I have no idea how long it actually takes.
There was a
And just to remind people, my CPU that I'm using, of course, CPU is just using to set up the scene. AMD Ryzen 3900X. And currently I do not have any overclock settings set for it. It's just everything on the CPU is running completely stock, letting it overclock itself if it chooses to. Alright, got about 10 more seconds and then it will be finished. And again, this is CUDA with the 3070. Alright, 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Going to change this over to slot 2. And this will be CUDA, but with the 3060. Alright. Render image. Normally, whenever I I'm using my computer and I'm using anything that's CPU intensive, I use uh, this, which is Ryzen Master, to not underclock but limit the clock speeds on my CPU, because the if you have it set to the stock, which is the default right here, it will auto overclock to as high as 4.6 gigahertz, and then the temperature right here will sometimes get pretty high, even though it usually only gets in the mid 70s, but that's still kind of high. Or I can put it on 3. I have some presets here, 3.8 and 4 gigahertz, and that right there, it just will only it will limit it to a max of 3.8 or a max of 4 gigahertz, and it runs much cooler, and the performance is barely any different. But I wanted to leave all that off so that everything is on the CPU is running stock for these tests, because that's pretty much how I've ran every other test that I've had here. It's with all stock settings, so that's why. Alright, it's definitely taking longer. We're already up to 2 minutes, and it's still got quite a bit left. Of course, this one's another one that I believe you could really um, save some render time on with some optimization settings. Alright, we're getting pretty close. Down to about 25 more seconds. Of course, it's already taken over a minute and a half longer, pretty much. I think nvidia made it so that there is a bigger gap between the 3070 and the 3060, because on the 2000 series or 20 series, there wasn't that big of a gap between the 2070s and the 2060s. So I think they kind of made the 30 series so there is a bigger gap, which, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. All right, 3 minutes and 54 seconds, and we'll change this to slot 3 now. And we'll go to OptiX, use the 3070, and we'll see what that looks like. Render image. And this should be quite a bit quicker, being that's the OptiX and a 3070. Looks like it's going to take just over 1 minute, maybe a minute and 5 seconds. Took 1 minute and 10 seconds in OptiX with the 3070. Let's go to slot 4. Change this to the 3060. And this is the 3060 in OptiX. And I'm guessing this is going to be close to 2 minutes, around 2 minutes. But tell me this guy doesn't remind you of RoboCop. Although the little thing in the center kind of reminds you of, Iron Man. Although it's the Blender logo instead of that red thing. The, I can't remember what they call it. I'm not much on Marvel movies. Arc reactor. That's what they call it. The arc reactor. I knew it was in there somewhere, but when you get old, your brain is like an old file cabinet. It creaks and cracks whenever you try to open it. Up to 1 minute 35 seconds so far. I believe it's going to do it in probably a little bit. Yeah, probably right at 2 minutes. Two minutes and 4 seconds with 3060 in OptiX, and it was 3 minutes. Pardon me. 1 minute and 10 seconds in OptiX with the 3070. So again, that's almost half as fast, a little bit less. So yeah, there's a fairly significant difference in performance between the 3070 and the 3060. All right, now what do I glean from all of this? Well, what I glean from it or get from it is that I would prefer the performance of the 3070, obviously. Who wouldn't? But I need that extra 4 gigabytes of VRAM that the 3060 has. So right now I have a 3070 and a 3060 in my main computer that I use for content creation and Blender and all that stuff. I think that's a halfway decent pairing. Now, preferably, I'd rather have a couple of 3090s, but or maybe even a 3080 Ti, because isn't the 3080 Ti also 12 gigabytes? If that's the case, then that would probably be a better deal. But you know how it is. GPUs are hard to come by nowadays, and I managed to get the 3060 at a decent price, not a great price. I overpaid for it, but I wanted a second GPU for this rig badly, and to me it was worth it to go ahead and pay a little bit over retail for this. All right, let's try something just for fun. Let's go ahead and turn both of them on, and we'll change this to slot 5, and we'll render these with both of them. And again, this is using OptiX with both the 3070 and 3060, both of them rendering, and we'll see how well this works. I'm going to guess this is going to take about 45 seconds, maybe 50 seconds. "52 seconds. Not bad. Let me try something before I close this out. Let me turn on adaptive sampling. I'm going to set the noise threshold. Yeah, leave the noise. That ain't what I meant. Leave the noise threshold set to 0. And put. Let me see what difference that makes first off. Alright, let me go to slot 6. Render image. Now this should be a little bit quicker. It probably won't be significantly quicker. But you figure this goes for about 8 or 9 seconds before it even starts to render, because setting up the scene is a little bit more complex. This is obviously turning out to be a long video, so if you made it this far, congratulations. Alright, took 44 seconds, so basically took 8 seconds left just by turning 8 seconds less just by turning on adaptive sampling. Alright, now I'm going to turn on the denoiser, set it to OptiX, and then I'm going to turn this down to 256. Alright, now I'm going to change the slot 7, and then we'll render it one more time, and this should take, I'm guessing, 25 seconds. And realistically, I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference in the way it looks. I took 19 seconds. Alright, let's zoom in so you can see if there's any difference in the way it looks. That's the one that took 19 seconds. And that's the one without the denoiser that took 44 seconds. This one is okay. That one looks better. There's a little bit more detail, but there's also more noise. So what I'm thinking, let me go to slot 8 now. And we're going to tweak these settings just a little bit. I'm going to change this to 512 so we can reserve a little bit more details. And let me go to the denoise settings. I'm going to take off albedo and just leave it to color. Now this should be in the 30-second range, I would imagine. And it's probably going to look quite a bit better. This will probably look better than the one without the denoiser. Because sometimes turning the albedo on the denoiser kind of makes it look weird. Alright, took 29 seconds. Let's zoom in. Yeah, that looks better. You are missing a little bit of detail, though. Let's switch over to 6. Yeah, see some of the detail in here. It's kind of corrugated looking or speckled. And if we go to here, it loses quite a bit of it. So yeah, that denoiser is certainly not a fix-all. Yeah, but let's try one more thing before we close this video out, because it's already long enough that y'all have probably had a couple birthdays by now. Alright, let's go to this BMW. Alright, now let's go to the preference settings, and we're going to keep this on OptiX. Both of them are turned on. Alright, these are completely stock settings. Go to render image, and we're going to render this out, and this should take about 13 seconds. It's going to be quicker than that, obviously. Oh, it's pretty close. 12, just under 12 and a half seconds. Now let's turn on adaptive sampling, make sure that's set to 0. And let's try this one more time. Go to slot 2, render image. This should be just a little bit quicker. It dropped just by turning on adaptive sampling, dropped it from 12.3 seconds to 7.7 seconds. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Alright, let's put this on denoiser. Go to OptiX and turn this down to, let's say, 10. Go to slot 3 and render. This should be extremely fast. 2.4 seconds. Now this is the funny thing. We'll zoom in and then we'll go back to the original. Which one looks better? The one that took really short amount of time, or the original that took 12.3 seconds? In my opinion, this one looks better. You may not have as much detail, but there's no noise, essentially. And it only took less than 3 seconds. So yeah, that's interesting. You could even, I wouldn't try to, optimize it anymore, because if you try to optimize it anymore, you're going to have a little bit of blotchiness, artifacts caused by the denoiser itself. But yeah, I guess that's it. If you have any questions about the 3060, leave a question and I will answer it. Guess that's it, people. Later.